Chums, when we think about royalty and being on film and being well scrutinised from every single aspect, we're all used to it now, aren't we? I mean, I mentioned the other day, of course, how we saw that wonderful behind the scenes footage of the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Catherine, just ahead of Trooping of the Colour. And I like all that sort of stuff, don't you? I think it's fascinating to see whether they have like nerves, you know, they're going on to the world stage, everything that she does and he says and looks and everything from the outfit is going to be scrutinised, ripped apart, adored, whatever you want to call it. And yet, of course, it's now part and parcel. We expect it really of the British monarchy because we now expect to be included in their most, you know, private moments in many respects. This really started, if you remember, with the coronation, and I thought it was wonderful seeing that behind the scenes footage at Kensington Palace as they sort of, you know, exited to go to an historical event, one that will go down in the history books. And when you think about it, it's always been documented. You see, I suppose the biggest moment in royal history would have been, in my opinion, when they very first heard His Majesty the King give a public address, his Christmas speech on the radio in the 30s. Do you remember that? That would have been, well, there was a lot of problems behind that, let me tell you. Apparently, he was keen, but not everybody was in the royal family. People didn't necessarily think it was a good idea that you should interrupt your subjects. Oh yes, that's what they called us way back during their Christmas lunch. Then it became a phenomenon. Everybody wanted and, you know, really look forward to it, and it's now very much a part of our staple diet on Christmas Day. But there was one particular royal that wasn't necessarily keen, and there was a reason behind it. As ever, let me explain. Morning, nice to see you, chums. Thank you so much for joining me today. Lovely to have your company. It is strange, isn't it? I've mentioned this before about how King Edward VII, really embraced the media age. And he embraced it because he saw that the public needed to get more connected with the royalty. You know, it's always been up and down. Doesn't matter what century you look at, what particular period, whether it's Elizabeth I or Henry VIII or the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, you know, there's always been problems because it's based on a popularity contest. Whether they agree with that or not, it really is. And it's how you charm your subjects, your people. And this was problematic, as one can imagine, for somebody like none other than Queen Victoria. You see, the problem that Queen Victoria had was, as we know, she went into a terrible period of mourning following the departure of her husband, Prince Albert. And then many people could not really extract her or indeed get her back on track. She didn't necessarily want to be seen in public, and people like Disraeli and her other prime ministers did their very best to force her back into the public gaze, basically saying, well, either do it or quit the job because people won't put up with it for much longer. Then the advent of this came, the moving picture, cine, whatever you want to call it. And in 1898, the Queen, along with other senior members of the British monarchy, were pictured for a royal garden party. Now, you would have thought that this would have gone down really well. You know, it didn't really take much work. And suddenly the Queen could be seen all around the world, the Commonwealth, and in all of those far-flung places where she was empress, etc. It did please her, the fact that people could see her, but she didn't like what she saw on the screen. Now, even back then, they could do sort of what we would call digital alterations, put a bit more light on them, put shadow over them, you know, the sort of thing. Everybody's always bothered about appearing too chubby. You see, on camera, there's two ways it can work. It can either add £10 to you or take £10 off. Yes, no, there's no need to be unkind, right? But the thing but the thing is, certain people, I know, I've worked with these people, actually look like they're £10 less than they are. Yes, it can have the other effect, you know, make you look slimmer. Now, here's where it gets interesting with Queen Victoria, because apparently, you know, she was all keen on this idea and all was going well. And all the big sort of inventors, the cinematographers of the day, were invited to Buckingham Palace and they were screening brand new reels of Her Majesty the Queen. And it all was going well. And then what happened, according to the story, is that, you know, when it gets to the end of the film and the reel runs out, and, you know, this sort of, you just see those imagery things and the, you know, ink pads and all that sort of stuff. Well, apparently it caught fire. Yes, and not a massive fire, but, you know, enough to evacuate the room and a few screeches and stuff like that. And apparently Queen Victoria's, shall we say, spiritual advisors, and there were always people advising these people, saw this as a bad omen. Oh yes, so much so that the Queen then for a long time refused to have a camera following her. She did of course relent for a short period on her Diamond Jubilee, but really other than that she didn't like it. She wasn't even keen on the idea of recording her voice. And it's funny to think, isn't it, that her son, the Prince of Wales, King Edward, fully embraced it and thought, wow, this is great for me, I could become more popular. I think in time Queen Victoria would have warmed to it, but of course time is not with all of us, is it? And sadly for her, the few sort of fragments that we have now of film are all that remain. Funny to think though that she took advice from those people and said, this is an omen. That's royals for you. Neil Shaw in Kensington, London.